foot home runs in Tropicana Field with a metal bat. And, hitting 443 in college at the age of 17 and playing pitcher, catcher, and outfield. So the expectations on him were unrealistic. Yes, did he have a historic season in 2015, one of the best offensive seasons ever? Yes. Can you talk about the Phillies without talking about Bryce Harper right now? No. You probably couldn't talk about the Phillies 3 years ago without talking about Bryce Harper. But what I'm trying to get at is Joe Girardi is the perfect manager to manage a personality like that, because we saw 2009, Scott, the manager of the Yankees was Joe Girardi. They spent nearly $500 million to buy that championship. Did they win it? Absolutely, because Joe Girardi is a great manager. Right. He knows how to work with players of all ilks. Look when he signed Luis Cruz in 2013 to play third base. Yankees still won 85 games with essentially no Derek Jeter that season. Girardi works with guys regardless of their stature in this game. So I think it's a perfect signing for him. I think it's good for Harper. I think Harper likes it, and I think they're going to get stability there. Girardi's not going to leave in 2 seasons.
Okay, now you are right about a lot of it, but I think Bryce Harper brings a lot of it on himself. Here's a guy that obviously signed a massive contract. To me, he's a heck of a player. His stats have fallen off. I love his play in terms of the way he plays defense, runs after balls, does have a few collisions with the walls. I think he has a huge ego too, and I think that's the one thing that when you look at Bryce Harper, okay, and the fact now he has a contract to play up to, he's brought a lot of this criticism on himself too. He has.
You too have to look at the markets he's played in, and look, I'm not saying Bryce Harper has lived up to the expectations set upon him. I don't think anybody will, just because those expectations were so monumentally high. But here's a number I'll throw at you, and I know you don't like analytics the way I do. OPS plus, the total gauge of a player's offensive output. Guess who ranks 8th in OPS plus since debuting in the majors since 2012? Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper has lost some value given that he's had a couple of seasons of lackluster defense, but the guy has been perfectly fine, if not one of the 10 best hitters in baseball since he has come up into the league, and that's given injuries and a bad 2018 season. He's been perfectly fine, and I understand what you say about the ego, but Bryce Harper, right, the problem with that is he cares. Not most athletes care.
Oh, I'm not questioning that, but we're only talking 2 markets, Lewis. Washington is not hold on. Washington is not that bad. When you talk about other markets that are demanding to play in, you want to talk
the
about
Phillies are one of them.
Well, yeah, and then the other one's New York. I think Washington is not a bad market to play in. When you look at some of the other ones, I don't even know whether Boston's that bad either.
Oh, I would argue it's the worst.
Well, okay, but I'm talking about in terms of the amount of media and the fact that Philadelphia is tough. We talked about this before we went on the air. If you're booing Santa Claus and booing everything in sight, and New York, to me, they're a bunch of fair weather fans, but to New York's credit, they are very knowledgeable baseball people up there, and they have been for many years. So I think Bryce Harper brings a lot of this on himself. And ironically, he's probably admitted that he would have a chance at a World Series ring, but he didn't think the Washington Nationals were good enough for him. And meanwhile, who's 2 wins away from getting a ring that he isn't going to get? Mm-hmm. He thinks he's above the team, and guess what? That thing called humble pie doesn't taste very good. And another thing that doesn't taste very good, Lewis? Crow. And you know what? He's eating both of those this postseason.
I agree with you. Listen, I'm just gonna continue to defend him. I'm not gonna say he's been the perfect player, but there's a lot of numbers that you can throw out there that'll say that his first season in Philadelphia wasn't that bad. And you know what I'm going to give him credit for, and I feel like you should too? He embraced that city in that first season. Everything that he did, he genuinely wants to win regardless of where he plays more than I think any other player in baseball, maybe other than Clayton Kershaw. But I think Bryce Harper wants to win more than any other player, and you can't blame the Phillies' failure. Look, I will argue his contract, given its length and value, is exacerbated by the fact that the Phillies were one of the most upsetting teams at the start of this season. Am I wrong? Absolutely not. But was Bryce Harper pitching for the Phillies this year? No. Was he playing left field like Andrew McCutchen was? No. The Phillies would have been a playoff team had Andrew McCutchen been healthy for the remainder of the season. And because of Gene Segura, who didn't run out a pop-out,
right,
that McCutchen was on first base for in a June 3rd game against the Dodgers, That's the reason they're not in the playoffs. Not only did Segura underperform, but Harper was just fine in the absence of McCutchen. They just were without pitching and their leadoff hitter all season.
All right, let me tell you this. I have never, ever said he didn't embrace the area that he's in. He's always embraced every place he's gone in. That's never been anything that's ever come out of my mouth, ever. I'm just talking about a guy with a large ego. Okay, and I'm going to say this again. You always want to go ahead and embrace the town that you live in. You really do. I don't care what market you're in, whether you're in Tampa, you play in front of 5,000 fans, or New York, whether you play in front of 50,000. It's not the point. He embraced that city, and he knew what he was getting into, so that's never a matter of question. I've never questioned that he doesn't play hard, and I think he's a fine player, and he's going to be paid like a superstar. So there's no doubt about that. Are there flaws with the Phillies? No doubt about it, okay? That's why they made the managerial change with a guy who had no experience in Gabe Kapler for 2 years to one that has an awful lot of experience in Joe Girardi, which at the top of this, okay, I said that was a great hire, and I'll say that. Now, we only have a few minutes before we bring on Nick, okay? I'll let you just make a mention of the MVP before we bring Nick Pugliese on the phone.
So we were talking about this briefly before the show, and I'll ask you again who you think deserves to win the American League MVP this year.
Well, I've always liked Trout. I always do. Mike Trout, to me, even when he was battling Miggy for a lot of years, is a foundational, generational player. I don't care who he's playing for, whether it's Brad Ausmus. I don't care whether he's playing for Mike Scioscia or now Joe Madden. And I'll even preface my case by saying that thankfully they hired Madden to get more out of Trout's career. So I have no problem with Mike Trout at all. None whatsoever.
I'll go out on a limb and say that Mike Trout should have won the MVP of the year. Miguel Cabrera won the Triple Crown. If you want to go by wins above replacement, I believe Cabrera was 6.7 WAR that year. Trout was 10.5. That's one of the best rookie seasons you're ever going to see. We're going to live the rest of our lives and never see a rookie explode onto the scene the way that he did in 2012. As far as this year goes, I have a couple of numbers. OPS plus, the number that gauges, in my opinion, other than Fangraphs metric, weighted runs created plus, which this number, both of these metrics convey total offensive output by a respective player. Mike Trout's OPS plus in comparison to Alex Bregman, the Astros third baseman, who is one of the three finalists along with DJ LeMahieu. You know, we're not going to discredit him, a great season, but a lot of his numbers pale in comparison to the aforementioned two. Trout's OPS plus is 185. Bregman's 162. If you're above league, if you're 100 is league average, that's what I want to preface this with. But you know, if your OPS plus is 120 and you're going far and above that, Harper, by the way, 125 this year, so still another fine season for him. Trout's OPS plus is 23 points higher than LeMahieu. Here's another number I'll throw at you. On-base percentage. I love on-base percentage. Bregman said at the outset of this year he wants to be a 400 on-base guy. He did that. 423 on base. He drew 119 walks. Trout's on-base percentage is 438. Trout has become Ted Williams, but with better defense in center field. Another number I'll throw at you. The last one I'll throw at you. Offensive winning percentage. This is a number that takes... It's a hypothetical, but it takes your one player and it spreads it across every single position on the field. Trout's offensive winning percentage this year was 815. Bregman's was 775. WAR, the last, and I know I said offensive winning percentage was the last one. WAR is the last one I'll go to. Bregman's WAR in 156 games was 8.4. Trout's in 134 was 8.3. He essentially equated his value in 20-plus less games because he missed essentially the month of September. He's the American League MVP.
Okay, the only number I'm going to throw at you, and we're done with the numbers, but I appreciate the fact that you have them, is LeMahieu's a bargain at $12 million a year, $24 million.
I don't think that makes an MVP, but I agree with you.
I just said it was a bargain at $24 million.
I thought he was going to get more.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, that's it. But I enjoy the fact that you brought those up. That's it. Okay, but I'll give you your due on that. So with that said, okay, I'm going to bring Nick Pugliese on the line. He's the sports editor for the Palm Beach Post, and Nick's a guy that I've known for a long, long time. So looking forward to having Nick on the program. And he's a guy that I work with the Tampa Tribune, and he's currently working. And
hey, Scott.
Yes, how are you, Nick?
I'm good. How are you?
All right. Welcome to the Sports Exchange. You are live with myself and Louis Adio Weiss. Glad to have you.
Well, it's good to be on, and I'm glad on the live, too, because I wouldn't want to be the other thing. That would not be a good thing.
Oh, well, that's all right. I am, too. So let's talk about what I wanted to talk about initially. You and I are teammates again, aren't we, Nick?
Yes, we are. We're teammates. We go way, way back, and it's good to have hooked up with you again. And you're going to be helping out the Palm Beach Post and doing some good writing and reporting for us.
Oh, I'm excited, man. Let's talk about our history with a guy who's new to the industry. Man, we go back to those days at the Tampa Tribune, the Post breakfast. Best part about my reunion with you, though, is we're only doing a little bit of high school. The rest is going to be big time, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah, no, it really is. It's, I mean, it all starts in sports, as you know, in high schools, and even at this point, you start your career doing high schools, and you find yourself still doing it because that's where it all starts. And in fact, just a little while ago, I'm listening to the game, the Palm Beach Gardens, Palm Beach Central game is on for a district title. I was listening to the radio broadcast of that, and it's like thinking, you never escape from that.
No, you don't. But I got to tell you, I had a lot of fun working for the Tampa Tribune back then doing it. But one of the things I really enjoyed doing, and only certain writers were eligible to do it, is I enjoyed covering the Florida State League and the Tampa Tarpons back then. And that was a lot of fun. And I even had that over you because you got to do all the good stuff, man.
No, minor league baseball. I have a love for minor league baseball. The sad thing is that when the Rays came in, which was a good thing for the area, but also was a bad thing for minor league baseball. They kind of killed it in that area once the Rays came in. But I remember going to many Tarpons games at the old stadium, Al Lopez, right? Old Al Lopez Field, and that's where the Reds trained for a long time.
Yeah, I did some spring training over there, and the nicest part about the Tampa Tribune was they gave me the opportunity to do some. I did some spring training, but I also got to work for Reds View magazine out in Cincinnati. And Rick Nelson, boy, you talk about a guy. I mean, I can tell you all the people that we work with, some of the greatest out there. Rick Nelson was great. Tom Ford, loved Joey Johnston, Jim Henry, Joe Henderson. Gosh, Herb Branham. Am I leaving some out? Go ahead. Tom McEwen, I love him.
It's funny you talk how the world. It's all connected. I actually, sent a message, email. Jim's a sports writer at the Tallahassee Democrat, which is soon going to be one of our sister papers when Gannett and Gatehouse end up merging here a little bit. But they had a story. I guess they're saying Governor DeSantis is basically not in favor of the law they passed in California of college athletes getting pay for play, and so he came out about it. So we're looking for some reaction from Florida State. And I got a hold of Jim, and they sent us their story, and we pulled some stuff out of it. So I try to talk to Jim now and message him on a regular basis, and we go way back.
Yeah, well, I tell you, when I first started working there, obviously Joey hired me, and I used to do a lot of work with Jim Henry, Herb Branham. Again, I don't want to feel like I'm leaving some guys out here, and if I've been redundant, so be it. They're worth being redundant anyhow. But why don't you let a lot of people know that the connection that the South Florida Tribune / South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network is going to have with the Palm Beach Rose. Give them a little bit of an overview about what we can expect for this joint working relationship.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're going to help use you and your expertise to help us cover events in mostly in Palm Beach County, and everything from high schools to hopefully spring training, maybe even some Kaiser University, Florida Atlantic University. We talked about even going up to Sebring, the big race up at Sebring. So we're going to, like I say, take advantage of what you can do for us, and like I say, we're looking forward to that relationship and getting back together again.
Oh, I know. I was excited. I like to joke around with people, even though we're not getting paid for this, okay? I still have to make sure that you know the difference between Flanagan's and Duffy's because you didn't quite figure it out the day we went out to eat.
It's all one same thing. I tell you, the older you get, it's got all blends together. Like I say, right. I have two daughters. I'm always confusing them. Same thing with sports bars. I get very confused.
Well, you know what's so funny about that trip to lunch? I passed by the place twice because I was looking for Duffy's, and no, it's right here. I said, well, Nick, if I look at the letters in the alphabet, okay, D becomes before F, as in Duffy's before Flanagan's, and even though we have green on the restaurants, it was the wrong green. But it was still a blast.
It was green. It was green, right? See, that was one connection. You're right. And it's a sports bar. There's another connection. See, I'm not that far off.
No, the only thing that you were missing, though, with that, Nick, is that I know Duffy's is an MVP card, and I'm piling up points. So when we go out there and have some of our lunches out there, we'll have my Duffy's MVP card in the future, and I'll make sure you do and get to the other one. So
that's a good deal.
Yeah, so with that said, okay, I know I don't want to leave Lewis out in the cold here, but he's my young guy who I'm grooming, and we're turning him into a broadcaster / writer. Let's talk a little bit about the World Series that features two West Palm Beach teams, and I'm definitely going to have a good piece of that action, right, Nick? That I'll have a chance to cover the Astros and the Washington Nationals. So let's talk about that, what it means to the area.
Yeah, first time in history, as we've been you guys have been saying the last couple of